good afternoon, good morning, I guess, and good evening in some areas. So, welcome back to the Coach Fidari's podcast this week. And I have a great and a very new friend with me here, Robert Maisel from New York. Robert, welcome. How are
Thank
you?
you so much. I'm good, Coach Padari. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm honored and privileged to be here.
Well, thank you. I think it's right to say that, morning for you, and it must be first thing in the morning today to kick off with.
Yeah, yep. Just starting the day over here.
How are things back home? How is the situation? Everything good?
Good. New York was one of the places that was initially pretty hard hit by the pandemic, but we have recovered quite well, I want to say. Doing as well as we can, for sure.
And I guess nothing less than that is expected from New York spirit. I mean, you guys rock when it comes to pulling yourself together as a city, as a state. You guys just a great example for a lot of people to look up to when it comes to going forward and doing better.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate you saying that. I mean, yeah, New Yorkers do have a spirit of like, go forward, move on. Let's get through this.
absolutely, and this is what we do in Dubai. The same thing. We have a dynamic city just as yours, a more smaller one, but definitely a twin sister in the world. So,
Amazing.
Robert, I'm just gonna go directly to the question and say, wow, great achievements and experience. I mean, I look into your profile and I'm like really amazed how much you covered, how much you've done so far, and how much you're going to be doing in the future. Travel coach, cross-cultural consultant. Now, the one I really get curious about is travel coach.
Okay.
Why and what does a travel coach do? And where did it start all this together?
Sure. So, great question. It's a common question because, first off, what I'd like to say is a travel coach is a lot. Let's talk about what it's not because it gets confused a lot.
Absolutely.
A travel coach is not a travel agent. Um, this is not the person who is booking the trips. Um, a travel coach more is somebody who's going to help a client think through their trip, the deeper meaning behind why they're traveling and what they're trying to accomplish, what goals are they trying to accomplish through their trip, and how can they then take those results that they've achieved on that trip and use it, push forward to create synergy moving forward throughout the rest of their lives.
I mean, wow. I must say, this is an amazing area that you're covering. I've come across consultants, but a travel coach, if I may say, besides being a cross-cultural consultant, is something the world would definitely benefit from. Give us an example of, a customer engagement. What would your typical customer sound like or be? I mean,
Sure. So let's take solo male traveler from the U.S., from California. Um, Reach is age 32. Um, and he's searching for meaning in his life. He's found that he's in a job that's unfulfilling. He's recently decided to quit his job and he wants to travel, but he doesn't really understand what he might be looking for. Maybe he's doing a little bit of soul searching. Okay, that's where I come in. So a conversation with myself would help this person hammer out, okay, now let's try to really find some meaning behind where are you trying to go, what are you trying to achieve, um, what are you aiming to learn about yourself, and where can that help you go. So really having this conversation, helping him hammer out some goals, and then we would get to more specific like locations, which kind of places could help you really get to those goals.
where did this start, Rob? I mean, it must have started somewhere. And when did it start? Why did it start? What was the curiosity behind kicking something as amazing as this off?
Yeah, it all goes back to motivation and drive, and like why are we do what we do in life. And my story is um, that I had traveled s- extensively throughout the world, hit 50 different countries. I was so fortunate to learn 4 additional languages, immerse myself in so many cultures. I'm saying to myself, I have changed so much as a person. And I have experienced travel on such a deep level. I want to share this gift with other people. I want to show people that travel isn't all about ticking boxes and positioning yourself properly in front of the Eiffel Tower for a photo. Don't get me wrong, that's fun, exciting, and cool, and we should still do that. But there is a deeper purpose, I would say, that we travel for. We travel for meaning, and not all of us understand what that is. So I started thinking, once this pandemic hit and everything, man, I think it's caused a lot of people to really dig deep and think about their values and really think about why they're doing what they're doing. And travel being such an important part of my life, I started to really analyze and assess, why do I travel? What do I get out of it? And let me help other people, because I've seen so many amazing things and had so many breakthroughs about myself in the world. Let me now help other people do the same.
Amazing. And you said pandemic. So we don't talk much about pandemic on the podcast, but an interesting point you brought up, I would like to reemphasize on that. Do you think the pandemic will change people's mindset or their view on how travel should be moving forward? Is that an opportunity? Whereas maybe prior to pandemic, we just traveled, right? We just wanted to go places, just spend some time. Some people do it luxury. Some people do it premium and select. Some people do it just, like to camper and just go camping somewhere. Do you think the pandemic actually has created opportunities for you in terms of how people will look into travel in the future?
It's a great question, Sohail, and definitely. Because I think the pandemic has really caused everybody to think about their lives, their priorities, what they're doing with themselves. Are they happy? Does it align with their values? Um, and when it comes to the travel space, I think people in general are going to be looking for more meaning in their lives, more meaningful interactions. And so when we talk about travel, I genuinely believe that people are going to be looking for more meaningful travel experiences as well. So with that in mind, there's definitely a need for a travel coach to help somebody figure that out, right? To look really deep and help people explore their values and how they can align their trips with those values.
And you said something about own travel. So you've traveled across the globe, and I believe you've been to China, you've been to Japan,
Correct. I've
and
actually lived in Japan as well.
you live in Japan and speak the language. So
I do.
what was the curiosity behind leaving and going, that far, if I may say so, to seek something else, to seek something new and diverse? What was the cause behind your first travel? And maybe not the first one, but the more extensive ones.
Coach Bedard, is a great question. I've always had a passion for people and a curiosity, like a burning curiosity, just a desire to understand more about people, about cultures. And so because of that, it really led me on this literally, most recently, literally world trip, but throughout the course of all the travels, it's led me all over the world um, to to speak with these people, to pick up a few more languages, to be able to better communicate from the heart with these people, just all over. Learn about people and communities, because I found that the best way for me to better understand these folks wherever they are is to be right there in person. Of course, right now it's hard for us to do that, but before this pandemic hit, be right there and having in person, like face to face conversations. Um, yeah, I found that very powerful.
And it is indeed. I think the more you think about the meaning behind any travel, and the moment you leave home, there's a purpose. There's always a purpose, but I guess there are different purposes for why we seek what we seek. Um, in the last few years, okay, I mean, you're much, much younger than me, so I would not even say 10, but I would say like in the last couple of years, 5 years, is there a new belief, behavior, or habit that just improved your life? one that stands out, that one that you really say, oh, you know what, that's something which really, really changed my life as a coach, as a human being.
It's that's a great question. I'm trying to think if there's one.
That's beautiful. If there are many, you can tell me as many as you want, but I just wanted to.
Yes, I would say empathetic listening. So this is a skill that I think is so important for people in every profession, especially in coaching, and I came to the realization a while back that I wasn't doing that. I think a lot of us we have a conversation. We're so excited about what we want to say. We're ready to just fire off our next paragraph or words, and we're passionate about whatever we're passionate. We're in our own world, and we're ready to speak about it, and that's natural, right? But I think going to the next level, when I realized the value in really focusing on the conversation, listening deeply, carefully, and empathetically to the other person, and responding in a way that shows that you're listening and responding accordingly, I just saw a major shift in the dynamic of conversations.
Wow, I always appreciate when somebody talks about listening. I think listening um, is definitely an area where we can always do better, especially if we're listening without an agenda. Whereas, we're not going to talk about corporate life here. However, and many of us have perhaps crossed roads in terms of employment, organizations where we think someone's listening to us, but in reality, they're just looking for signs. There's no listening, or as we call it, second level listening happening without an agenda. So thanks for sharing that. I think that's definitely can be elaborated further. And I'm going to ask you a very tough one, which is always not appreciated by anyone on the podcast.
I'm sorry, I can't answer it.
You can always say no comment. And I mean, we can talk to your lawyers, but
go right ahead.
All right. So how has maybe one or an apparent failure, okay, that has happened to you, set you up for later success? Either a failure, total failure, or a semi-failure, which you would have considered setting you up for success. Do you remember one of them, or the biggest one? And can you share it with us? And I would always call it the favorite failure, right?
And I don't dislike this question whatsoever. I actually really like this question. I'm just thinking in my mind right now, I'm trying to give you the best failure that I've had. I'm trying to think of like how I've failed the hardest or the most. And I want to give you an example as I'm thinking through this. I want to give you an example that's like really had an impact of moving forward.
Sure.
Oh man, this is a good one. It's a great one. I gotta think.
And the silence is always there, by the way. So it's always it needs a little bit of reflection.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's so many facets, right? Because you got professional, personal, educational. Would it be possible to continue to think on it and come back to the question?
Yeah, I mean,
I want to give you the best one.
I'm come back.
And I'm having trouble pulling the best one out.
You're not going to run away. We're going to come back to this. So from failure, let me go somewhere else. I want to go to Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires, right? Tell us about Buenos Aires. Tell us
Sure.
about
Beautiful city. Spent a semester there,
Okay.
studying Spanish. Um, and guess what? Boom. We just got back to your last question. Here's biggest failure. Right there.
I didn't know
Right
that, but
there. Yeah, thank you. You just led me to the you just led me to the answer. Biggest failure occurred in Buenos Aires. Here's why. I studied Spanish for years. Um, I thought to myself, well, I have a decent vocabulary. I'm good with grammar now. Now, okay, good. Put me in a real world setting, right? So I do my semester abroad. I get down to Buenos Aires. I think, wow, my Spanish is fine. It's great. There's no problem. And I proceeded to not understand anything. initially initially, like, what happened, right? What happened? Okay, here's the failure, is thinking that, okay, because I have studied this in school, I'm now a Spanish master. No. Actually got down there and realized, wow, not only do I, you know not am I not able to comprehend, now this is initially, yeah, what's going on, because a lot of it is the slang, their accent. It's very different. It's something I had never been exposed to before. But the difference was natural, real, one-on-one, in-person interactions versus learning out of a textbook and all that. Very different. Um, so yeah, so definitely, thought to myself that I was able to communicate no problem, and initially was not. Now that's not to say that I didn't leave that country 5 months later with the ability to do that, but at least initially, I think failure, like being like naive, overconfident in my abilities without having had real continued interaction with people in that language.
I mean, a failure doesn't have to be bigger than that. I think you pointed out on an area where um, being too comfortable sometimes leads us to certain decisions that can also have a bit of a tough consequence. Now, the fact that you went all the way with the courage of going and learning and getting yourself in an environment which is not home, that's applaudable, and I think that's what's part of your cross-cultural gift, I think, to humankind. So from travel consultant, sorry, from a travel coach, okay, not consultant, from travel coach Inc. to cross-cultural consultant. What's in common?
So the common theme connecting those two roles is really it's the passion for travel, language, and culture, and it connects because with the travel coaching, right? We're talking about helping people achieve their goals through travel, and travel, the type of travel that I've done, and I think a lot of clients will do, is involving other people, involving other cultures, a lot, maybe just involving themselves, but also potentially learning a new language to be able to better really interact and engage with a new group of people. And then that ties right into the cross cultural, because what is cross cultural all about? It's about helping people understand the concept of culture, and then how is it with their own cultural lens? How are they seeing the world, and how do they need to understand that a new or a different group of people that they haven't interacted with yet, how does that group of people, how does that culture see the world? So there's that common theme of um, culture, and of course you'd have to, different cultures are located in different places, which involves travel, and then there's the language element there too. A lot of times people in other cultures don't necessarily speak the language that we do, at least their first language, so perhaps we have to learn a little bit of a couple new phrases in a new culture, new language.
And again, culture, the word culture is so, uh, in my eyes, it's so simple, but it can be as sophisticated as you can make it when it's not perceived, or it's not really understood. When you don't put an effort into understanding somebody else's culture, and culture can be home, can be a workplace, and can be a country or a city and a state, as a matter of fact. Now,
Absolutely.
how do we make it a better place? I mean, someone comes to you and says, Rob, um, how do I live cross-culturally aware? What I mean, regardless of where we come from, as long as we have an open mind, how do I do that? I don't necessarily understand maybe Chinese or Russian or English, American spoken, or the diverse Arabic languages we spoken in the Middle East and Northern Africa, etc., etc. How does a person better themselves or work on themselves to become a bit more aware of cross-cultural abilities?
You know, Sohail, that's a great question, because you think about how many cultures are out there in the world. Like, how much time would it take you to become an expert on everyone? Yeah, that's so difficult, right? So how do we have this mindset? How do we sort of, how are we prepare ourselves to be ready to interact with other cultures and be culturally aware, as you said? Um, in your question, you actually mentioned what I might say, what I probably would say is the strongest piece of the answer is open-mindedness, is keeping an open mind. And that's one of the key things that's so important, because we really need to open our perspective. We need to be open-minded about learning more about other people and understanding that while we all have the same basic needs, other cultures have other ways of achieving those results, and getting those needs met. And they may often be different, sometimes drastically different than the methods that we're used to. So really keeping an open mind, and being aware that we have our viewpoints and our paradigms based on our experiences, and that's our reality. But that is not necessarily, and oftentimes not, um, the reality of another person or another group of people that we don't understand so well.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, especially if we base our, understanding on others' um, studies or comments or researches. I think we tend to read a lot about another culture before we actually um, reach out to it, right? Whether it is west, east, north, south, it doesn't matter. I think within a country, there's a big misunderstanding sometimes with cultures as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is a bit broad, but if you can share with us, what is one of the best and most worthwhile investments you've ever done? And now it can be anything. It can be time, it can be your energy invested in somewhere, or your money. What is one great investment you've done in any area? And if you can share it with us.
Sure. um, so you're not going to be surprised by this answer. Travel.
I love it. I was almost guessing that's going to be the answer, but I wasn't sure.
And I would say that, and it's been an investment of time, energy, and money, all three of the factors that you mentioned. And here's why. It's something that it's so powerful to understand just other groups of people. And you, through this process, I have just of extensive travel, I should say. We're talking anywhere from 5 weeks to 14 and a half months. So hell,
Wow.
yeah. So by really getting out there, just into the rugged real world, and understanding that my small world is not the world, not in the least bit. There is so much more to this world that I have to understand. And by doing that, I really grew as a person, developed just skills of independence, responsibility, budgeting. So many amazing things came out of the travel. So that piece, and that's, as we mentioned, such a driving factor why I want to show other people the importance in investing in travel and thinking about um, their travel, their motives, and so on.
I think there's no better example than actually leading by example, right? I think if I come to a travel coach like yourself, I'll be more comfortable when a person has traveled the world and speaks from experience. So keep on traveling, my friend. I think that's something that definitely an investment that it's you spend money and time but I think the return on investment is so much higher than anyone can expect.
And
Yeah, go
Coach,
ahead.
I would just want to add one more thing, and would want to say that a lot of times in life, I've just seen people have these ambitious goals, things they know they really want to do, and they can get shut down by the opinions or of oftentimes people who are meaning to help. And so I would just want to offer the advice that if you know that something is really right for you, I can't tell you how many people told me I'm crazy to go on every trip I took, but had I not done that, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. So if you know that what you are setting out to do is right for you, do it. Um, you know, it, that would be my advice.
It's great advice, and I think I would definitely emphasize that travel makes us grow, and once you travel, you're never the same person again. It's impossible to be the same person again. And now, again, not going back to pandemic, but I mean, the couple of months we've passed and the couple to come has put us into isolation somehow, countries by countries, and people tend to now, kind of emphasize how great it is to focus on traveling within their own countries, and that's like a booster, right? Want to boost your own economy, you want to boost your own national pride, and then do you sense that there's a bit of exaggeration, or maybe that's just the normal phase after the pandemic, that people are so much now um, emphasizing how great it is to be at home, and that they would rather stay at home than go anywhere else, or is it just a phase?
That's a good question. It may be a phase, and I think it's also going to. Um, I think it's going to depend who you talk to, because I've spoken to some folks, and you know they've really been taking advantage of traveling locally, domestically, like you're saying. Um, we've even seen an an increase in road trips, right? People like,
Right.
because this small personalized kind of bubble with people, and you're in your own car, and so there's less kind of risk there. But I think you'll also speak to folks, I have as well, that are thinking about it like, okay, so this is all we can do right now, but we'll do this domestic travel for now until we're ready to open up and travel internationally again. And some folks are nervous to go anywhere, and whatever boat anybody is in right now, that's totally cool, totally fine, because everybody has different ideas on it, and that's what makes us diverse and human beings. But I will say, I think the excitement's definitely growing. I think I would say that it's great that people have been thinking about really appreciating their own country and doing more domestic travel. And I think now itching for that next step, sort of never having thought, oh, I never thought I couldn't just take off on a plane. And now that it's so complicated right now, oh, wow, I can't wait to do that again, kind of thing.
I think that's right on spot, and we can see that everywhere, even in where I live in Dubai, and usually the hottest months of the year, which is July, August. A lot of expats tend to go back wherever their first home was, and now second home, and we see people exploring now. I mean, I go hiking with my wife every weekend, and now we're out of Dubai, but we go hiking at 7 p.m. and onwards, and I'll be honest, this is it's a great moment to explore other sides of the city or the country. But yeah, we look forward to the opening of the world so that we can travel again. I think um, again, travel is a blessing, and it teaches you a lot about yourself.
Coach, I just want to say, I'm so glad that you mentioned the timing in which you're going on hikes, because having been to Dubai during the summertime myself, anything before 7 p.m. or let's say 6:37, oh no.
Well, I
I
tell
didn't
you,
even understand the true meaning of heat until I was.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's only me and my wife up in the mountains, so I don't see many people than myself and her. But we're having a thrill, and it's been a blessing to be able to go hiking, even though it's a bit too hot. But to your point, um, it's definitely an opportunity that's coming up, right? For a travel coach, for a cross-cultural consultant, and you've done your studies. I mean, you're intercultural masterclass um, candidate. So tell us about the masterclass in intercultural studies. What have you done? What did you learn?
Sure. So the masterclass was a phenomenal opportunity to learn more about the world of cross-cultural and how to deliver it in a manageable way to people, um, so that they can understand culture, like the concept in general and how it affects our lives, and so that they can better understand how their own perspective can shape their interactions, and then how to better accustom or better adjust and understand um, to their new culture.
Wow,
And
that's
it gave the framework for being able to do that. Um,
interesting. Interesting. Very much indeed. I got a few more topics to kind of cover with you a bit. Like the failure one is a bit tough, but I hope that
yeah,
you
go.
don't mind me asking. So, number one, I would say, who are the three top inspirational people in your life, or were or are currently? The three people you would, individuals you would name, and why?
Hmm. Top three inspirational people in my life, um, and why. That's a great one. Another one where it's like, this is a deep thinking one.
And if three is a lot, you can stick to one. And I'm sure you have many, but
Um,
it depends on.
yeah, there are just there are so many folks that could be mentioned here. I'd have to say my mom, because growing up, she really showed me the importance of family, responsibility, um, and really provided a very solid example of how responsible living and spending um, can produce a good, like a comfortable situation. Um, Now, I do want to give three people. So I would say mom on a personal, a family member level. Um, I would say on a friend level, one of a great inspiration to me has been a longtime friend of mine, Danny Stern. Shout out to you, Danny, if you're listening eventually. Um, because he's an example. He's just someone I've connected with, always had a good friendship with, but he's someone who's really set goals in his life and accomplished them. You know, Everything from personally to knowing knowing he always wanted a family, um, and what he wanted in a partner, and finding that, creating that family, and professionally knowing he wanted to, what he wanted to do, and going into that. So it's been really inspirational and powerful. And I'd say, there's so many family members I could mention, so many friends, and then so many professional people. And I would want to say that I would want someone who had a very big impact on me. It really inspired me. Her name is Jana Masick. So you may have seen I was on her show. Um, she really inspired me to see a bigger vision for myself, which was the catalyst. It really started the ball rolling for my career in a much different, more powerful direction. And that is because I changed the view I have of myself. And that was largely due to conversations with her.
Well, I'm sure there's many others, and the three, the one you mentioned, are definitely moms come always up on the list, top in almost all podcasts. So they're still leading the leading the mess. Um, you touched on the third inspirational person in your life, and tell us about that show. Tell us um, why, when, and what was the outcome.
Sure. So Jana runs a weekly LinkedIn live show called Powering a Unique You. And it's all about discovering, and Jana's in the world of coaching too. And it's all about discovering unlocking every person's individual unique talent, perspective, and leadership capability. And so she interviews people on a weekly basis to tell their story. And she does it in a way which is very powerful. It's structured, and she really helped me think through. Um, our conversation was about the steps necessary to achieving goals, and what we talked about was the steps that I used to achieve some of these extraordinarily long or complicated trips I took, and how I did it.
Okay, so literally is a development conversation that you kind of go deeper into your own um, reality, and then kind of realize how things are, and then you go move on with that, right?
Right. So like realizing who you are,
Okay.
sharing your unique perspective, um, and being a leader in your own way.
Amazing. Well, a shout to her if she's out there and she's going to be listening to this, because we'll make sure that she gets to hear this podcast. You mentioning that, a great inspiration for you and everyone else who's been on that show and will be. Um, Today's new normal, right? And people talk about the new normal and how things have changed, and maybe things have changed forever. What would you give as an advice to anyone coming out of college today, and what to ignore and what to focus on?
That's a great question. Um, and I was recently thinking about this. You know, when uh, when I went through school, so when I went to college, I did my 4 years. I did my bachelor's in Spanish, and then I went on to do my MBA directly after that. And I um, remember thinking to myself, we had to make a choice. There was information assurance, which is kind of like accounting, is the focus areas of the MBA, and they weren't traditional areas that you might see, like finance management. The program I did it was different. So information assurance, information technology management, and human resource information systems. Um, Now we had to make that choice, and I ended up choosing ITM, information technology management. I always thought technology was interesting, but I thought that there would be more job opportunities available within that focal point, right? If I was a student in that program, rather than human resource information systems, which combined the technology element, but really included the human piece, which deep down I really knew that that's more what I was all about. But I made the choice to go with what I thought was more practical, or was more, aligned with what could get a full-time offer directly out of the MBA, right? So looking back on that decision, you know, would it have mattered drastically had I done one or the other? Maybe not so much, but if I could do it again, I would choose the other. I would choose the other concentration, which I really deep down felt I resonated more with. So looking back on that experience, I would use that experience to tell people coming out of college, focus on what you're really interested in and passionate about, because that's what you're going to be good at, you know, um, and let your career take you from there. And also not to worry if you ended up studying something and you end up doing something completely different. I remember my dad telling me at his graduation speech in college, the speaker said that, some astronomical percentage of you will go on to do great things in this world that have absolutely nothing to do with what you studied. So not worrying so much about the past, but moving forward in a direction that really resonates with you, who you are as a person, and your value and belief system. I think that's going to bring the most success for anyone.
And I agree with you. I think it's a beautiful statement you made, that values, passionate about what you do, and don't be afraid. Don't worry. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
things can change a lot. And for the folks who've seen this pandemic, I think they've grown a lot. They've gone through. I've seen people who are in their younger ages, and they've never seen a crisis before. So for them, this was a really really a wow moment. Saying, I've never seen anything like this. It made me so stronger, and and now I see other opportunities in life. So yeah, I definitely echoed what you said in terms of be courageous, go ahead, and there's always options and solutions that you could look into. Not only one, but then there's a lot. Travel coaching can be also overwhelming, right? It can also be tough. Sometimes if you are feeling overwhelmed and unfocused, how do you get back on track, Rob? What do you do? Is there a place? Is there a thing? Is there anything that brings you back on track when you're overwhelmed?
Now, okay, I just want to clarify. Now, are we talking on on a personal level, on a professional level?
I would say Rob is right now overwhelmed with whatever is around him. And how do you kind of get back on track? Or how do you, as a coach, is there a space where you go, and what do you do to just get back on track?
I usually just pick up the closest object, which is usually a stapler, and I just throw it through the window. So we've got like 15 broken windows already at this point, and the bill is astronomical. Fortunately for you, myself, our audience, that is obviously a joke. But I'm not providing that joke to skirt the question. I will answer it. I think the way that I best handle being overwhelmed or feeling stressed is really thinking about what it is that's overwhelming me, and that may be a combination of factors, and doing something that I know I enjoy that will relieve the tension. So if it's been a long day, for example, sitting in front of the computer, or just lots of emails and things, and getting out and exercising is a way that I really like. Just as you mentioned, you enjoy hiking with your wife. I really enjoy just getting out, going for a run, any form of exercise, push-ups, sit-ups, really gets the energy going, the endorphins flowing, and just puts me in a better mood. So exercise, I would say, is definitely a great way to sort of underwhelm myself when I'm feeling overwhelmed, if that makes sense.
It does, and you can still throw a stapler once in a while. It doesn't really hurt. That's
as long as no one's getting hurt in the process. Why not?
I think that could be taken as an advice, and then it's not up to us to decide. But we don't recommend this to be used at home, guys. So
we're not recommending that you throw staplers, but if a stapler happens to get thrown, just make sure it's not thrown at another human being or a pet, for that matter.
One of the reasons I ask this question is always because people look upon coaches as a fountain of energy and resource. And when we talk with coaches of different background and industry expertise, it's important to know, as a human being, as a coach, where do you get your energy? Where do you get your what is your source of re-energizing yourself? So thanks for being so simple and just answering it with a very straightforward reply. I think it just sometimes takes as little as needed to get back on track. And I can see you have something on your mind, I guess. Is there something you want to add on?
Well, as you were just saying, the source of your energy, so it was interesting because I was thinking twofold. One, exercise certainly helps, bring down that level of stress or anxiety. And I think that's powerful what you said. People really do want to understand a coach in terms of what gives this person energy, what gives this person life. And I would say that another driving force is really getting up every day and just knowing I'm on the right path, just knowing that I'm doing things that are helping people and providing and impacting lives and providing value to people. And that is what really gives me a strong source of that energy.
And in a few words, purpose of life, right? Your life
Yes.
is very clear there. So, Rob, are you working on something exciting in terms of plans for travel as a coach? Anything that you want to share with us? You want to kind of give us a hint?
Yes, I'm in the process of writing a book about how travel changes lives.
Wow. Okay, that's an amazing announcement. And are we looking forward to seeing it soon? Where are you at?
Sure. So I am finished with the first draft. I am at the phase. So it's gone through one round of editing, which I have to look into, make some updates and think about, a couple different things like more stories to add potentially, different information I might want to include. And then I've been having a lot of conversations recently just about next steps, and it's going to be another at least one round of editing, potentially two. And I'm also looking into the different publishing options right now. What's going to allow me to share this knowledge with the greatest amount of people out there, and what's going to work best. So that's where we're at right now. I am sending out weekly updates actually, on this process, which at some point I could provide you with a link. Let me show you, and then there's a site that people can just, if they're interested in. Yeah, the whole point behind that, coach, was I figured since people are feeling, especially when I started writing the book, I know they're feeling really kind of locked in and kind of would love to be traveling. I said, hey, you know what? I'm going on a journey right now. I'm going on a journey of writing a book, and I would love to have you on it with me. So by providing these weekly updates, the thought process was give people an opportunity to join this journey and feel like they're a part of something epic.
We look forward to seeing that. In a minute or two, you're going to share with us all the details of where people can find you. Before we do that, though, we're coming to the end, and I wanted to ask you to step into my shoes for a minute and ask Rob, a question that I didn't, and what that question would be, and obviously answer it.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand correctly here, I'm Coach Badari now, and I'm asking myself
A question that I didn't.
a question that you didn't ask. Man, Coach, you're full of great questions.
I mean,
I know this one's on me, but I didn't even.
I didn't ask the question.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Let me think on that for a moment.
Sure.
So, Rob, tying in together the professional things you do, the travel coaching, the cross-cultural consulting, what's your ultimate aim, right? Where are you trying to go with this, right? What's going to culminate from your efforts? Okay.
There you
Now,
go.
here I am again, same but different person answering that question. Great question, Rob. Thank you so much for asking such an insightful question. I would say that the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing is following this feeling I have, the values. But really, as I was thinking more deeply about this, there's a bigger piece of the puzzle here. And what it really ties into is by providing people tools to better understand the impacts of travel, languages, and cultures, we're also giving people the tools to better understand other people, right? And by doing this, what we're doing is reducing ignorance, right? And by reducing ignorance, we are also reducing fear of the unknown. And by reducing fear of the unknown, we are also reducing hatred in the world. And by reducing hatred, we are making this planet a more peaceful place. And that is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
By far the best question of the podcast, I have to say, and I'm so happy you asked yourself that question, because there's so much that can be done, and there's so much that we still have to do as every individual or every human being across the globe. And we've seen, what ignorance can lead to in different levels everywhere. It starts at home, and it can go into schools, and it can go into work, and it can go into parliaments, and it can go, on and on. So, Rob, thank you so much. Last but not least, where do the viewers or listeners find you? How can they connect with you to definitely get more insight on how a travel coach can help them, and how a cross-cultural consultant can be a benefit in their life?
Sure. So just going to put a couple links in our chat. They've got the best way would probably be LinkedIn. I can provide you with that link as well. I have a website as well, which is www.robmaisel.com. Folks can certainly feel free to connect there. I just want to pop in this to our chat here. So, and that's my LinkedIn profile, is linkedin.com/in/Robert Maisel. Feel free to connect there. Or email robert.w.maisel@gmail.com. I'm happy to connect with and hear from anyone and everyone.
Thank you, Rob. Robert Maisel Consulting. Thank you so much for connecting with us all the way from New York. It's your morning. We wish you a great day and an amazing weekend coming up. And we look forward to hearing more from you, seeing your book come out, and hopefully people reach out from even this side of the world for your expertise.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Ohel. It's been a pleasure.
We look forward to having you back. Take care of yourself, and all the best to everyone back home.
Thank you.